Ahoy, mateys, and welcome to this week's Pirate Raid on the Pirates vs. Werewolves podcast. We've got two wild flash fiction stories for you today. Think blockbuster action meets those page-turning thrills all packed into a single captivating adventure. Get ready to dive deep.
That's right. I think what makes flash fiction so compelling is that it really distills these big ideas, like intense action and really thought-provoking themes, into these potent little narratives.
Yeah, and today's stories definitely deliver on both fronts. First, we're going to plunge into the Silver Curse. You send in this story, and it throws us right into the world of werewolves, but with a fascinating twist. Imagine a young werewolf whose touch actually burns other werewolves. We'll unpack how this curse makes him an outcast, but might just become the key to saving his kind from a really ruthless enemy. We'll explore themes of isolation, unexpected powers, and finding belonging even when you're facing adversity. What happens when your greatest weakness becomes your only hope?
It's a classic underdog story, right? But with some real bite to it. I'm really curious to see how this curse plays out.
Then prepare yourself for a descent into the dark heart of the ocean with the Werewolves' Curse. This tale brings together the obsession of Captain Ahab with a terrifying twist. His nemesis is a werewolf, a creature capable of transforming men into beasts. We'll navigate a voyage fueled by vengeance, explore the blurred lines between hunter and hunted, and delve into the madness that grips Ahab and his crew. What drives a man to such lengths, and what monstrous transformations await them in the deep?
It sounds like a collision of classic literature and monster movie mayhem. I'm ready to set sail.
All right, so let's start with the Silver Curse. Right off the bat, we're introduced to Marcus, our protagonist. And this curse isn't something that, develops slowly. It manifests in a really dramatic way during a wrestling match with his younger brother. Imagine that. 1 minute you're playing, the next you're inflicting this searing pain on someone you love.
It's a brutal introduction to his curse, and you can imagine the shock and the fear that ripples through the pack. You know they've never encountered anything like this before. It immediately sets Marcus apart, and not in a good way.
Absolutely. There's this instinctive recoil from him. He's labeled a monster by his own kind. It's a powerful reminder of how quickly fear can turn into rejection, even in a community that's already outside the norm.
And this rejection forces him into exile. He's alone, constantly on the move, surviving, but also desperately craving that connection that he's been denied.
And that yearning for connection is such a core part of his character. He's a werewolf, this creature of instinct and power, but he's also profoundly lonely. It makes you wonder, what's more isolating, being physically alone or being surrounded by others but unable to truly connect?
It's a question that resonates with, I think, a lot of us, even without the whole werewolf thing. That feeling of being an outsider, it can be really powerful.
So while Marcus is out there trying to survive, this rogue alpha starts making moves. He's gathering power, terrorizing other packs, and word of this reaches Marcus in these desperate pleas for help. But initially, he's pretty dismissive, right? Like, why would they want his help now after casting him out?
It's understandable skepticism, right? He's been betrayed by his own kind. Why risk himself for a community that's shown him nothing but fear? But then something shifts, doesn't it?
Yes, a single name changes everything. Elena. She was someone from his past who wasn't afraid of his touch. And that memory, it sparks something in him, a glimmer of hope. What do you think it is about those connections to our past, even fleeting ones, that can have such a profound impact on us?
I think it's that sense of possibility they hold. They remind us that maybe, just maybe, things can be different, that acceptance isn't entirely out of reach.
So Marcus seeks out Elena's pack. They found refuge in the mountains, protected by spells, this hidden haven. And he has to face their council of warriors. Talk about walking into the lion's den. He's vulnerable, carrying this burden of his curse, hoping for a chance. It really highlights the courage it takes to confront those who've hurt you, even when there's no guarantee of forgiveness.
And Elena, she doesn't turn him away. In fact, she sees his curse as something else entirely.
Yeah, she sees it as a weapon, a way to fight this rogue alpha. His touch, this thing that has isolated him, becomes the key to disrupting the alpha's power. It's such a clever inversion, isn't it? Taking what was perceived as a weakness and transforming it into a strength.
It's a reminder that sometimes the very thing that makes us different, that sets us apart, can be our greatest asset.
So the plan is hatched. Marcus will infiltrate the rogue alpha's gathering, using Elena's illusions as cover, and he'll unleash his curse, sowing chaos and weakening the alpha's hold over his pack. The imagery in this scene is so vivid, you can almost feel the tension, the dark energy crackling in the air as Marcus moves through the shadows.
It's like a stealth mission with supernatural stakes. And it's so effective. That subtle touch, that burning pain, it spreads like wildfire through the ranks. It disrupts their unity, their loyalty to the Alpha.
And then Elena's pack attacks. It's a full-on ambush, a chaotic battle under the moonlit sky. And Marcus, he's right there in the thick of it, fighting alongside those who once feared him. His touch, once a symbol of isolation, now becomes this crucial weapon.
It's like he's finally found a place where his curse isn't a curse anymore. It's a part of him, yeah, but it's also a source of power and purpose.
And the climax of the battle is so satisfying. Elena, with her silver-tipped arrow, takes down the rogue Alpha. It's a decisive victory, a hard-won victory. But the aftermath, that's what really stuck with me. The pack's reaction to Marcus is this mix of gratitude and, still a little bit of that lingering fear. It's not instant acceptance, but it's a start. Do you think true acceptance is something that can happen overnight, or does it require time and patience and understanding?
I think it's a process, right? Especially when there's been so much hurt and fear involved. You can't just erase the past, but you can build a new future. And that's what Elena offers Marcus with her simple words. Welcome back, Marcus.
It's a powerful moment of hope and belonging, and it speaks to the idea that we're all capable of change and growth, both individually and as a community.
Okay, so let's shift gears and dive into the werewolves curse, which takes us from the mountains to the open sea. And right from the start, we're introduced to a character who's larger than life, Captain Ahab. But this isn't the Ahab from Moby Dick, is it? This is something a bit more monstrous.
This Ahab is driven by the same all-consuming obsession, that need for revenge against the creature that took his leg. But there's this added layer of terror to his story. He's not just hunting a whale, he's hunting a werewolf, a creature shrouded in these dark rumors.
And those rumors paint a pretty terrifying picture. They speak of transformations, of men turning into beasts, of a siren song of bestial hunger. You can almost feel the crew's unease, the fear that hangs in the air like a thick fog.
And then comes the big reveal. Ahab himself has been cursed by the werewolf. He too transforms under the full moon. So now he's not just hunting a monster, he's hunting a reflection of himself. It adds this whole new layer of complexity to his obsession, doesn't it?
It becomes this internal struggle as much as an external one. He's battling his own nature, trying to destroy the very thing that he's becoming. Have you ever felt like you were fighting against a part of yourself that you wanted to deny or suppress?
I think we all have those shadows within us, those aspects of ourselves that we'd rather not acknowledge. But Ahab's struggle, it's magnified to a monstrous scale. And what's fascinating is the crew. They're aware of Ahab's obsession, his growing madness. But they're also bound to him, whether by duty, greed, or even just a desperate need for something to believe in.
They're like moths drawn to a flame, knowing it could burn them but unable to resist its pull. And they each have their own reasons for being there, their own backstories and motivations, but ultimately they're all caught in the undertow of Ahab's relentless pursuit.
The scene where they encounter that derelict ship, it's just dripping with atmosphere. A moonless night, the stench of blood in the air, and this guttural moan echoing across the water. It's chilling. And Ahab's reaction, it's this mix of his usual ferocity and a genuine primal fear.
That fear is the fear of the unknown, of course, but it's also, I think, the fear of recognition. He's starting to see the true nature of the beast he's hunting, the monstrous potential that lies within himself as well.
And then we have Starbuck, the first mate. He's the voice of reason, urging Ahab to turn back, to leave this cursed hunt behind. But Ahab, he's too far gone. He's completely consumed by his need for revenge.
Starbuck represents that last glimmer of sanity, of compassion. But Ahab has crossed a line. He's no longer capable of seeing reason. His obsession has blinded him to everything else.
And then the werewolf emerges from the depths. But it's not just a whale, is it? It's this hulking, furry creature with burning eyes, grotesque mockery of nature. It's a visual representation of Ahab's own internal transformation, a nightmare brought to life.
And the creature's cunning, its intelligence, it's almost human. It makes you question who's really the monster in this scenario. Is it the creature itself, or is it the obsession that drives a man to such extremes?
And then the horror of the curse spreading. The sailors transforming under the moonlit sky, their screams turning into bestial howls. And Ahab, he witnesses this with a mix of horror and, disturbingly, a kind of twisted kinship. It's a chilling moment that highlights how far he's fallen.
That kinship is the most terrifying part. He's no longer entirely human. He's becoming the very thing he hates. And it's spreading to those around him. It's like this dark, infectious madness.
And Starbuck, in a moment of desperation, shoots Ahab with a silver bullet. It's a drastic act, a betrayal, but it's also a twisted form of mercy. He's trying to end Ahab's suffering, to stop the curse from spreading further.
It's a last, desperate gamble to restore some semblance of order to this chaotic situation. But the Werewolf, it's not done. It drags the Pequod and its cursed crew down into the depths, leaving us with that haunting question: who was the true predator? Who was finally free?
It's a bleak ending that leaves you with a lot to think about. The destructive nature of obsession, the blurred lines between man and monster, and the question of whether true freedom is even possible in the face of such darkness.
These two flash fiction stories, they offer a lot of food for thought. They're like these little windows into the darker aspects of human nature, the things we fear, the things we try to suppress, the monsters we create within ourselves.
So what stood out to you in these stories? What questions lingered after the final word? We'd love to hear your interpretations. This has been another Pirate Raid on the Pirates vs. Werewolves podcast. Be sure to rate and follow for more captivating dives into the world of flash fiction. Until our next adventure into the fantastic.
Until next time, mateys.